Uncharted 4. Alright, let's talk about Uncharted 4 Thief's End. If you've played any of the Uncharted games, you probably already know what's coming. Big action, epic set pieces, and Nathan Drake's charming self making you want to go on adventures with him. But Uncharted 4 takes it all to another level. The story is honestly something else. This isn't just about finding treasure, it's about family, redemption, and coming to terms with your past. Nathan's got a brother Sam who throws a bit of a wrench in everything, and they're dynamic. It's real. You feel the tension, the love, and the history they have together. This game really nails that emotional connection, and it doesn't feel forced, which is rare. The gameplay is still top-notch. The mix of shooting, climbing, and exploring feels so smooth, and the new grappling hook mechanic, absolutely genius. It adds so much to the exploration, and honestly, swinging around like Spider-Man is way more fun than it probably should be. The combat also feels natural, and you've got options. You can go all guns blazing or sneak around depending on how you want to play. It's flexible, and that makes it even more fun. Visually, this game still holds up. The environments are stunning, whether it's the dense jungles, old temples, or the streets of Madagascar. It all looks gorgeous. Naughty Dog really flexed here. And yeah, while the action's amazing, what really stands out is the heart of the story. It's not just about the big, explosive moments, it's about the quieter, more personal moments between the characters. So yeah, Uncharted 4 is a 10 out of 10. If you haven't played it yet, trust me, it's worth it. It's a wild ride with some of the best characters in gaming, a solid story, and a hell of a lot of fun.
Hey, I think that's him. Right there.
Where am I?
Life is Strange. Alright, let's talk Life is Strange. This game is all about drama, mystery, and a little bit of magic. It's not about saving the world or fighting enemies, it's about people, choices, and how they mess with your life. You play as Max Caulfield, a high school senior who discovers she can rewind time. Sounds wild, right? But the game keeps it real. Max isn't trying to be a superhero, she's just trying to figure things out, deal with her friendships, and face some tough moments. The best part of Life is Strange is how it shows what it's like growing up. Max's relationship with her best friend Chloe is a big deal, and watching how it changes is both painful and beautiful. The choices you make in this game really matter. Every little decision, big or small, can change how things play out, and that builds up to some serious emotional moments. Sometimes the dialogue feels a bit cheesy, but honestly, it just fits. It feels like the awkward, messy, real side of being a teenager. The art in this game is stunning. It has this soft, painted look that fits perfectly with the mood, and the music, it's so good. Each song hits you right in the heart. If you're into games that are emotional and make you think, Life is Strange is a 10 out of 10. It's more than just a game, it's an experience. You'll laugh, cry, and definitely feel something long after you finish it. Don't skip it.
I did it.
Can you give
I
me an
actually
example
did
of
it.
a photog-
Hey, ma'am.
Ma'am? Thank you. Hello. Hey, kitty.
Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is the kind of game that pulls you into a world and just doesn't let go. You're thrown into the boots of Arthur Morgan, a member of a gang trying to survive in a world that's quickly moving past the Wild West. The game isn't just about shootouts and horseback chases, it's about the little moments, the characters, and the choices that weigh heavy on you. The world itself is something else. It feels alive. From the lush forests to the muddy rivers, it's the kind of place you just want to get lost in. You can hunt, fish, talk to strangers, and if you feel like it, just roam around and take in the sights. There's so much to do beyond the main story, and it all feels real. The details are insane, from brushing your horse to cleaning your weapons. It's all about making you feel like you're part of that time. Arthur's journey is where the heart of the game lies. He's tough, but you can see the cracks in him. He's stuck between loyalty to his gang and knowing things are falling apart. His relationship with the other members, especially Dutch, is complicated, and you really start to feel the weight of every decision as the game goes on. There's a lot of tension throughout, and it doesn't shy away from showing the consequences of the choices people make. The pacing is slow, and that's something you have to be okay with.
How did that feel?
You're not rushing through this game. Sometimes you're just sitting by a campfire or riding through the wilderness, but those quiet moments are what make the intense ones stand out. When a gunfight or a dramatic choice comes up, it hits harder because you've spent so much time in this world soaking it all in. And the music? Perfect. It matches the mood whether you're in a quiet moment or in the middle of a chaotic fight. It's one of those games where the sound just adds to the whole experience. Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't just a game, it's an experience. It makes you think about loyalty, survival, and what it means to live in a changing world. It's the kind of game you'll keep coming back to long after you've finished it, just to see what else you missed. A Plague Tale Requiem. Plague Tale Requiem picks up where Innocence left off, diving even deeper into the story of Amisha and Hugo. If you played the first game, you know how intense their journey was, and this one cranks that up. The stakes are higher, the world is darker, and you feel the weight of everything these two are going through. The story pulls you in right from the start. Hugo's curse is getting worse, and Amisha is doing everything she can to protect him, even if it means going to some dark places herself. Their bond is what holds everything together. It's raw, emotional, and feels so real. The writing and voice acting nail it, and you can't help but root for them even when things seem completely hopeless. The world is stunning in that tragic, haunting way. The environments are bigger and more detailed than the first game, and you really get a sense of how brutal life was back then. One minute you're walking through a peaceful field, and the next you're wading through a horrifying scene of destruction. And of course the rats are back, millions of them. They're even more terrifying this time, swarming like a living, breathing nightmare. Gameplay-wise, it's still all about stealth and survival. You're sneaking around, using your wits to outsmart enemies and managing resources, but now there are new tools and abilities that give you more options. Hugo's connection to the rats is expanded, and it's creepy but also pretty useful. Amisha, meanwhile, is more hardened, and you see that in how she fights and handles herself. The combat is still very grounded, though this isn't a game where you feel like a superhero. Every encounter feels dangerous. The pacing is tight. The game knows when to slow down and let you take in the story, and when to ramp up the tension. The set pieces are bigger, but they never feel over the top. Everything serves the story, which makes the whole experience feel cohesive. Requiem is heavier, more emotional, and more polished than its predecessor. It's a journey that doesn't hold back, and by the end it leaves you with a lot to think about. If you're into story-driven games that really make you feel something, this one's worth your time.
Any idea where the pharmacy keys might be?
Telltale's The Walking Dead. Telltale's The Walking Dead is one of those games that stays with you long after you finish it. It's not about zombies or action, it's about people. The relationships, the hard choices, and the emotions hit you like a truck. The game starts with Lee Everett, a guy with a complicated past who ends up taking care of Clementine, a young girl trying to survive in a world falling apart. Their bond is the heart of the game, and watching it grow is both beautiful and heartbreaking. Lee isn't just protecting Clementine from zombies, he's trying to teach her how to live in this harsh, unforgiving world. What makes this game so special is how much your choices matter. It's not just about picking the right answer, it's about what you think is best at that moment. Sometimes there isn't a good option, and you're forced to live with the consequences. People will remember what you say, hold grudges, or even trust you more, and that adds a lot of tension to every decision. The story is emotional, plain and simple. It doesn't pull punches, and it's not afraid to make you cry. There are moments where you'll sit there, staring at the screen, just trying to process what happened. And it's not just the big moments, the quiet, personal ones hit just as hard. The art style is perfect for this kind of story. It's comic book inspired, which ties into the series' roots, but it also gives the game a timeless look. The voice acting is incredible, especially from Lee and Clementine, and it pulls you even deeper into the story. If you're into games that make you feel things like really feel things, then Telltale's The Walking Dead is a must-play. It's not just a game, it's an emotional roller coaster you'll never forget. Detroit Become Human. Detroit Become Human is one of those games that makes you feel like you're in control of a movie. It's set in this near future world where androids are everywhere, but instead of being just machines, they're starting to wake up and figure out what it means to be alive. The story follows three characters, Connor, Kara, and Marcus. Connor's this android detective working with humans to track down deviant androids who started breaking their programming. His story is full of tension as he has to decide where his loyalties lie. Kara's journey is much more personal. She's on the run, trying to protect a little girl named Alice, and her story hits hard emotionally. Then there's Marcus, who's leading a rebellion and trying to decide whether to go for peace or violence. Each story feels different, but they all come together in a way that's super satisfying. What really makes this game stand out is how much control you have. Every choice you make changes something. Some are small, like how a conversation plays out, and others are massive, like who lives or dies. The game even shows you a flowchart after each chapter so you can see all the paths you could have taken. It's wild how much can change depending on what you do. The world is super detailed. You get to see how androids have completely changed society. Some people rely on them and others hate them. It's not just background noise either, it's woven into the story and you really feel the tension between humans and androids. The characters look incredible too. The motion capture is so good it feels like you're watching real actors. And the voice acting, perfect. Every character feels alive, and it makes the emotional moments hit even harder. If you're into games with a strong story and choices that actually matter, Detroit Become Human is worth playing. It's one of those games that sticks with you because it makes you think about the decisions you made and how things could have turned out differently. Definitely one to check out. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt isn't just a game, it's a whole world you lose yourself in. You play as Geralt of Rivia, a grumpy but lovable monster hunter, and his job is to track down Ciri, his sort of daughter, who's being chased by this creepy group called the Wild Hunt. Sounds straightforward, right? But it's way more than that. The story is where this game shines. It's not just about the main plot, every side quest. Every random person you meet feels like they're part of something bigger. Some of the side quests are even better than the main missions in other games. And the choices, they're not easy. There's no clear good or bad option most of the time, which makes everything feel so much more real. Your decisions shape the world around you, and sometimes you don't even realize how big the impact is until much later. The world itself is massive and alive. From the swamps of Velen to the bustling streets of Novigrad to the snowy mountains of Skellige, every area feels unique. You'll find yourself stopping to take in the scenery because it's that gorgeous. And the random stuff you stumble on, whether it's a monster contract, a hidden treasure, or a village that needs help, makes exploring feel rewarding. Combat is fun once you get the hang of it. You've got your swords, your potions, and your magic signs, and it's all about preparing for each fight. It's not hack and slash, you've got to think about what you're fighting and plan ahead. And if you don't, the game will happily remind you with a quick death. Oh, and let's not forget Gwent, the in-game card game. What starts as a random distraction quickly turns into a full-blown addiction. You'll find yourself going out of your way to beat every Gwent player in the world. The writing, the voice acting, the music, it all comes together to create something special. Geralt's dry humor, the emotional weight of the characters, and the way the world reacts to everything you do, it's just so well done. If you're into open world RPGs with incredible storytelling, you owe it to yourself to play The Witcher 3. It's not just a game, it's an experience you'll remember for a long time. Rise of the Tomb Raider. Rise of the Tomb Raider feels like stepping into an adventure movie where you're calling the shots. This time, Lara Croft heads to the icy wilderness of Siberia, chasing after the lost city of Kaitish and the secret of immortality. It's personal for her, and you can feel that drive in every step she takes, whether she's scaling frozen cliffs or diving into ancient tombs. The game nails the balance between action and exploration. The tombs in particular are awesome. They're way more fleshed out than in the last game. Solving them actually makes you feel like a treasure hunter, not just someone flicking switches. They've got puzzles that make you stop and think, but nothing so hard it ruins the flow. And then there's the world itself. Siberia is brutal but beautiful. You'll go from dense forests to icy caves to ancient ruins, and every place feels alive. You'll just want to stop and take it all in, even if the weather is trying to kill you. The combat feels solid too. You've got options going guns blazing or stick to stealth. Lara's bow is still the MVP, and crafting stuff like poison arrows or molotovs on the fly adds a cool survival vibe. The traversal is super satisfying, especially with all the grappling and climbing. There are moments where you'll just stop and think, man, this feels epic. One thing I love is how the game keeps survival elements light but meaningful. Hunting animals, gathering resources, and upgrading gear never feels like a chore. It's just enough to make you feel like you're earning your progress. And Lara herself, she's tougher, more determined, and yet still very human. You see her struggle, question herself, and push through it all, and it makes her so much more relatable. Visually, this game is stunning. The snow crunches under your feet, the wind howls through the trees, and the lighting in those dark caves, perfect. The little details pull you in, and the sound design makes it all even better. What really sticks with me about Rise of the Tomb Raider is how it makes you feel like you're living this adventure. It's not just about the action or the puzzles, it's about the journey Lara's on and how you're right there with her every step of the way. If you love the idea of being dropped into a wild, dangerous, and beautiful world with nothing but your wits and a bow, you've got to play this. It's not just a game, it's an experience. Hitman Trilogy. The Hitman Trilogy is a masterclass in creative chaos. You step into the polished shoes of Agent 47, a bald assassin with a barcode on his head and a knack for turning any object into a weapon. These games aren't about mindless action, they're about planning, improvising, and pulling off the perfect hit your way. Each level is basically a giant playground, and the game doesn't hold your hand. You're dropped into these gorgeous, detailed locations like a high-tech mansion in Dubai, a vineyard in Argentina, or even a fashion show in Paris, and it's up to you to figure out how to take out your targets. Poison their drink, drop a chandelier, disguise yourself as a flamingo mascot. The possibilities are endless, and the game actually rewards you for experimenting and getting creative. What makes the trilogy so good is how flexible it is. You can spend hours meticulously planning every move or just wing it and see what kind of chaos unfolds. Even when things go wrong, and they will, it's still fun to scramble and turn the situation around. Every level feels like a puzzle, and you're the one deciding how to solve it. The story ties the trilogy together, but honestly, it's not the main focus. It's there to give some context to Agent 47's missions, with a few twists and turns, but the real star is the gameplay. The game is all about how you tackle each level, and no two playthroughs ever feel the same. The environments are insane. They're packed with NPCs going about their day, reacting to what you do, and making the world feel alive. It's not just a backdrop, it's part of the challenge. Blend in, learn routines, and figure out the best way to get close to your target without blowing your cover. One of the coolest parts? The trilogy keeps everything from the previous games. If you own the earlier entries, you can carry over levels in progress, meaning you've got this huge collection of missions to tackle in one place. It's like one giant assassination sandbox. The Hitman Trilogy isn't about speed or reflexes, it's about thinking on your feet, adapting, and making your own fun. Whether you're a perfectionist trying to get Silent Assassin or someone who just wants to see what happens if you set off an explosion in the middle of a party, these games have something for you. It's slick, it's clever, and it's ridiculously entertaining. Mafia Definitive Edition. Mafia Definitive Edition takes you back to the golden age of organized crime with style. It's a full remake of the 2002 classic, but instead of just slapping on some new textures, they've rebuilt the entire thing from the ground up. And let me tell you, it looks and feels incredible. You play as Tommy Angelo, a cab driver who gets caught up in the world of the Salieri crime family. The story is the heart of this game, and it nails that old school mob drama vibe. It's full of betrayals, loyalty, and tough choices, all set in the backdrop of the 1930s. The voice acting and cutscenes are top-notch, making every character feel alive and every moment hit harder. You can't help but get pulled into Tommy's rise and fall in the criminal underworld. The City of Lost Heaven is stunning. It's not the biggest open world out there, but it's packed with charm and detail. You've got old-school cars cruising down the streets, vintage billboards, and radio stations playing period music that sets the tone perfectly. perfectly. It's like stepping into a time machine. The game keeps the focus on the story, so don't expect a ton of side content, but that's not a bad thing. It makes the pacing tighter and the experience more focused. The gameplay has been updated, but it still keeps that classic feel. The driving feels weighty and true to the era. Those 1930s cars aren't exactly built for speed. Gunfights are solid with a nice mix of cover-based shooting and some intense action. And yeah, the difficulty can be punishing, especially on classic mode, but it makes every encounter feel like it matters. What I love about Mafia Definitive Edition is how much respect it has for the original. It sticks to what made the game great, its story and atmosphere, while modernizing the gameplay just enough to keep it fresh. It's the kind of game that feels like a love letter to fans of the series, but is still totally approachable for newcomers. If you're into crime dramas or just love a good story-driven game, Mafia Definitive Edition is absolutely worth checking out. It's not trying to be the biggest or flashiest game out there. It's just focused on delivering a tight, memorable experience, and it does that beautifully. Spider-Man 2018. Spider-Man 2018 makes you feel like you are Spider-Man, swinging through the streets of New York City, taking down bad guys, and balancing the double life of Peter Parker. From the first moment you leap off a rooftop and feel the rush of web swinging, the story is a perfect mix of superhero action and personal drama. This isn't an origin story, it's a more experienced Peter Parker who's already balancing being Spider-Man with his day-to-day life. You get a great mix of big superhero showdowns with villains like Doc Ock and personal moments with Aunt May, MJ, and others. The writing is sharp, emotional, and occasionally hilarious, exactly what you'd want from a Spider-Man story. The web swinging is easily the highlight. It's smooth, fast, and ridiculously satisfying. You can zip through the city for hours without even touching the ground, and it never gets old. The combat is also fantastic. It's fast and fluid with a mix of punches, web gadgets, and acrobatic moves that make you feel like you're always one step ahead of your enemies. Plus, the stealth sections let you get creative, webbing up enemies before they even see you. New York City itself is a star in this game. It's bright, colorful, and packed with life. From Central Park to Times Square, every part of the city feels alive and like it was made for Spider-Man to swing through. There's a ton to do, too, whether it's stopping random crimes, chasing pigeons, yes, really, or finding collectibles that dive into Spidey's backstory. One of the best things about this game is how much heart it has. You're not just fighting bad guys, you're watching Peter struggle with being a hero while trying to live his life. It's emotional, funny, and even a little heartbreaking at times, and the ending. It hits hard in the best way. If you've ever wanted to be Spider-Man, this is the game for you. It's not just about the web swinging or the action, it's about the heart of what makes Spider-Man such an iconic hero. It's fun, it's emotional, and it's one of the best superhero games out there. God of War Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok is an epic conclusion to Kratos and Atreus' Norse saga, and it's everything you'd want from a sequel. It picks up right where the 2018 game left off, diving even deeper into the father-son relationship, the weight of fate, and the looming threat of the apocalypse Ragnarok itself. The story is massive, but it never loses focus on its characters. Kratos is still the gruff, no-nonsense warrior, but you see him trying to be a better father, grappling with his past and the future he wants for Atreus. Meanwhile, Atreus is growing up, questioning everything, and pushing back against Kratos in ways that feel so real. Their dynamic is the heart of the game, and it hits harder than ever. The combat is a step up, which says a lot considering how great it was in the first game. You've got new abilities, weapons, and enemies that keep things fresh, but it's still got that weighty, brutal feel. Switching between weapons mid-fight feels seamless, and the game constantly throws new challenges your way to keep you on your toes. Plus, Atreus plays a bigger role in combat, and he's a blast to you. The world is bigger and more varied, with all 9 realms to explore this time. Each one feels unique, from the lush forests of Vanaheim to the fiery chaos of Muspelheim. The puzzles and exploration are just as satisfying as the combat, and there's so much to find if you're willing to dig into every corner. What really stands out is how polished everything is. The visuals are stunning, whether it's a jaw-dropping boss fight or just the way the snow crunches under Kratos' boots. The voice acting and music pull you right into the story, making every moment feel even more impactful. God of War Ragnarok doesn't just stick to what worked in the last game, it builds on it in every way. The stakes are higher, the characters are deeper, and the world feels more alive. It's emotional, intense, and an incredible end to this chapter of Kratos' story. If you're into epic adventures that mix action, story, and heart, this is a must-play. The Last of Us Part 1. The Last of Us Part 1 is the kind of game that sticks with you. It's not just about surviving in a world overrun by infected, it's about the bond between Joel and Ellie and how their journey changes them. This remake brings the original story to modern standards, making it feel even more raw and emotional. You play as Joel, a man broken by loss, tasked with escorting Ellie, a teenage girl, across a post-apocalyptic United States. What starts as a simple job turns into a powerful story about trust, survival, and what it means to care for someone again. Their relationship grows naturally over time, and by the end you're fully invested in both of them. The gameplay combines stealth, action, and resource management. Supplies are scarce, so every encounter feels intense. You're constantly weighing your options, sneak past enemies, craft a Molotov, or go in guns blazing. The infected are terrifying, but the human enemies can be just as dangerous, if not more. Combat is gritty, but it's the quiet moments in between that really hit hard. The world feels bleak but alive. Exploring abandoned towns, overgrown cities, and forgotten homes gives you a glimpse into what people left behind. The environmental storytelling is so good you'll find notes, photos, and little details that make the world feel real. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is Cal Kestis' next big chapter, and man, does it step things up. The story picks up years after Fallen Order, and you can feel how much Cal has grown and how much weight he's carrying. He's not the scrappy Padawan anymore, he's a battle-hardened Jedi trying to figure out his place in a galaxy that feels more broken every day. The story doesn't shy away from getting personal. Cal's dealing with loss, loyalty, and some real tough decisions about what it means to be a Jedi when everything's falling apart. And the relationships, they feel alive. BD-1 is still the best droid buddy ever, and returning faces like Seer add depth. The new characters though, some of them really surprised me, especially with how they challenge Cal's journey. Combat is where this game goes from good to amazing. The lightsaber stances give you so many options. It's like choosing your Jedi personality. Want to feel like a duelist? Go with the single blade. Love chaos? Dual wield and go nuts. And the crossguard saber, it's heavy and brutal in the best way. The force powers feel even better this time around, letting you really experiment with combos and strategies. It's like they handed you a toolbox and said, go have fun. The worlds are huge and packed with secrets. The planets feel alive, not just big empty spaces, but places you want to explore. 1 minute, you're climbing ancient ruins, and the next you're in a creepy cave fighting off creatures that want to eat you. They've made exploration way more rewarding too. You're not just running from point A to B. There's stuff to find, side quests to tackle, and surprises around every corner. What I really love is how the traversal has leveled up. The grappling hook and extra mobility make moving around feel so smooth. Wall running, climbing, and ziplining all blend together into this seamless flow that's just fun to mess around with, even when you're not chasing a specific objective. Visually, the game is jaw-dropping. Each planet has its own vibe, and the details are ridiculous. From the way light filters through alien forests to the sheer scale of crumbling temples, it's clear the devs went all out to make the galaxy feel alive. What sets Jedi Survivor apart is how it balances everything. The story is emotional without being over the top. The combat makes you feel like a total badass. And the exploration gives you so much freedom. It's a game that understands what makes Star Wars special adventure, heart, and a little bit of chaos. If you've ever wanted to live out your Jedi fantasy, this is it. Metro Exodus. Metro Exodus is a wild ride across post-apocalyptic Russia, and it does something special. It takes the gritty, claustrophobic tunnels the Metro series is known for and throws you into a much bigger open world. It's not just about survival anymore, it's about finding hope in a place that seems completely hopeless. You're back as Artyom, still chasing his dream of life outside the Metro tunnels. This time you leave Moscow behind and hit the rails on the Aurora, a creaky, old train that becomes your moving home base. The journey takes you across different seasons and locations, each with its own dangers and stories. The cool thing is how the game doesn't feel like it's trying to be a typical open world shooter. It's still focused, with every area packed with atmosphere and purpose. The environments are incredible. You've got everything from frozen wastelands to lush forests, and each one feels alive in its own way. But it's not just about the scenery. Every place you visit tells a story. Whether it's a ruined village with signs of a desperate last stand or a creepy church run by fanatics, you feel like you're uncovering the world's history as you explore. Gameplay is all about survival. You're scavenging for ammo, crafting gear, and managing your resources like your life depends on it, because it does. The combat is tense, especially when you're low on supplies. And trust me, sneaking around while your flashlight flickers and hearing growls in the distance, that's peak survival horror. What I love is how the game lets you play your way. You can go in guns blazing, but ammo is scarce and the enemies are tough. Or you can stick to stealth, taking out enemies quietly or avoiding them altogether. And the choices you make, they matter. Your actions affect your crew and the ending, which adds some real weight to how you approach situations. The Aurora and its crew are the heart of the game. Between missions, you spend time with your fellow survivors, listening to their stories and seeing how they change over the journey. It's not just Artyom's story, it's theirs too, and the moments you share with them make the stakes feel personal. Metro Exodus isn't just a shooter, it's a journey. It's about survival, yes, but it's also about hope, family, and what it means to keep pushing forward in a world that's falling apart. If you're into games with atmosphere, heart, and some seriously intense moments, this one's worth every second. Yakuza Like a Dragon. Yakuza Like a Dragon is a bold shift for the series, and honestly, it works so well. Instead of sticking to the beat 'em up formula from the older games, this one goes full on turn-based RPG, and somehow it still feels like classic Yakuza. It's chaotic, heartfelt, and absolutely ridiculous in the best way. You play as Ichiban Kasuga, a low-level Yakuza with a big heart and even bigger hair. After taking the fall for a crime he didn't commit, he's released from prison years later, only to find his old life gone. From there, it's a roller coaster ride of loyalty, betrayal, and building a new family of misfits. Ichiban isn't like Kiryu, he's more goofy, more emotional, and honestly more relatable. You can't help but root for him, even when he makes some questionable decisions. The turn-based combat is where the game really shakes things up. It's like an RPG but with a Yakuza twist. Your party consists of characters you pick up along the way, each with their own wild fighting style. And the abilities? They're hilariously over the top. One minute you're calling in an army of pigeons to attack an enemy, and the next you're smashing them with a giant traffic cone. It's silly, but it's also surprisingly strategic. You've got to think about positioning, weaknesses, and status effects, which keeps things interesting. The setting, Yokohama, is massive and packed with stuff to do. Whether you're playing karaoke, managing a business empire, or racing go-karts, there's always something pulling you away from the main story. And honestly, that's where the game shines, just getting lost in the weird, wonderful side activities and meeting some of the most bizarre NPCs you'll ever see. What really sets Like a Dragon apart, though, is how much heart it has. The main story hits hard, tackling themes like poverty, loyalty, and finding purpose. Ichiban's relationships with his crew feel genuine, and the way they come together as a family is just so well done. It's the kind of game where you'll be laughing one minute and tearing up the next. If you've never played a Yakuza game before, this is a perfect place to jump in. And if you're a longtime fan, it's a fresh take that still feels true to the series. It's got everything: great characters, a wild story, and that signature mix of absurdity and emotional depth. You're in for one hell of a ride. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons is one of those games that sneaks up on you. It looks like a simple adventure at first, but by the time you're done, it hits you right in the feels. It's short, sweet, and one of the most unique storytelling experiences out there. The game puts you in control of two brothers, and here's the twist: you control both at the same time. One is mapped to the left stick and the other to the right. At first it's kind of awkward, your brain struggles to keep up, but once you get the hang of it, the way the controls tie into the story is genius. It's not just about moving them around, it's about feeling their connection through how they rely on each other to solve puzzles and navigate the world. The story is simple but powerful. The brothers set off on a journey to find a cure for their father, and along the way they face challenges that test their bond and resilience. There's no dialogue, it's all told through gestures, expressions, and the world around them. And somehow that makes it hit even harder. You don't need words to understand what they're going through, and by the end you're fully invested in their journey. The world itself is stunning. It feels like stepping into a fairy tale with beautiful landscapes, towering cliffs, and strange mystical creatures. Every area has its own vibe, and the game does a great job of mixing in little moments of wonder with darker, more emotional beats. You're constantly moving forward, but the pacing is perfect. You're never stuck in one place too long, and every moment feels meaningful. What really sets Brothers apart is how it uses its mechanics to tell the story. Without spoiling anything, the way the game forces you to adapt as the journey unfolds is something you don't see often. It's a game that doesn't just tell you a story, it makes you feel it through the controls, the world, and the actions you take. It's a short game, you can finish it in a few hours, but it stays with you long after. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons is proof that games don't need to be massive or complex to leave a lasting impact. If you're looking for something heartfelt and unique, this one's a must-play.
Outsmart them.
Well, then I'll fight my way out.
Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is a game that came out of nowhere and hit like a power chord. It's a rhythm action game that's as much about bashing enemies as it is about feeling the beat, and it somehow nails both perfectly. It's like if you mashed up a Saturday morning cartoon with a killer rock album, and the result is pure fun. You play as Chai, a wannabe rock star who ends up with a music player fused to his chest after an experiment gone wrong. Now, everything in the world moves to the beat: enemies, environments, even your attacks. The best part, you don't have to be perfect with the rhythm to play, but the closer you stick to the beat, the more satisfying and stylish the combat feels. It's forgiving, but it rewards you for really getting into the groove. Combat is where this game shines. It's a mix of rhythm and classic action game mechanics with combos that feel so smooth when you hit them in time with the music. You've got a guitar-shaped weapon that Chai uses to bash enemies, and you can mix in partner assists and special moves that amp up the chaos. Every fight feels like a jam session, and when you're in the zone, it's just pure joy. The visuals are wild. It's got this vibrant comic book art style that feels alive, with every frame popping with color and energy. It's one of those games that's just fun to look at, whether you're smashing robots or just soaking in the environment. The animation syncs perfectly with the beat, which makes the whole world feel like it's dancing with you. And the soundtrack? Absolute fire. It's packed with original tracks and licensed songs from bands like Nine Inch Nails and the Black Keys. The music isn't just background noise, it drives the entire game, and it's impossible not to get caught up in it. What makes Hi-Fi Rush special is how unapologetically fun it is. The story is lighthearted and doesn't take itself too seriously, with quirky characters and over-the-top humor that keeps you smiling. It's all about having a good time, and the game never loses sight of that. Whether you're into rhythm games, action games, or just something that feels fresh and different, Hi-Fi Rush is a blast. It's one of those games that grabs you from the first beat and doesn't let go. If you're looking for something full of energy, style, and pure fun, this is it. Pentiment. Pentiment is one of those games that feels like it shouldn't exist, but I'm so glad it does. It's a medieval murder mystery set in 16th century Bavaria, and everything about it screams passion project. It's not flashy, it's not action-packed, but it's deeply engaging if you're willing to slow down and soak it all in. You play as Andreas Mahler, a journeyman artist working in a scriptorium, basically a medieval art studio for manuscripts. One day, a murder rocks the little town of Tassen, and you're pulled into investigating it. But here's the thing, it's not your usual solve the crime and catch the killer kind of deal. The game leans into uncertainty. You make tough calls based on limited information, and sometimes you have to live with the fact that you might not have gotten it right. It's messy, just like real life. The characters you meet are what make this game shine. From the monks at the abbey to the farmers in the field, everyone feels real. They have their own lives, struggles, and opinions, and how you interact with them matters. And the dialogue is smart and layered, but never boring. It's like having a bunch of deep conversations with people who actually have something to say. Visually, this game is stunning. It looks like a medieval manuscript come to life with hand-drawn art that's full of charm and detail. Even the way the text appears on screen is thoughtful, different fonts for different social classes or personalities. It's a small thing, but it adds so much character. What's wild is how much history is packed into this game without it ever feeling like a lecture. It's immersive, not preachy. You're just living in this world, seeing how religion, politics, and art shaped people's lives. And it's not sugar-coated. The game isn't afraid to show the harsh realities of the time. This isn't a game for everyone. It's slow, introspective, and more about the journey than the destination. But if you're the kind of person who loves getting lost in a story, digging into history, and experiencing something truly unique, Pentiment is a gem. It's not just a game, it's like stepping into another time and place, and honestly, I haven't played anything quite like it. It Takes Two. It Takes Two is a wild, creative, and heartfelt co-op game that's basically a love letter to playing together. It's about Cody and May, a married couple on the verge of divorce who get turned into tiny dolls by their daughter's wish. What follows is a crazy journey through imaginative worlds where they have to work together to find their way back and maybe fix their relationship along the way. This game forces you to play co-op, and that's the best thing about it. You and your partner, friend, spouse, sibling, doesn't matter, are constantly solving puzzles, jumping through platforming challenges, and fighting bosses.
There you are, intruders!
No! We don't want to fight!
Don't think it cares, Cody.
But the cool part is that no two levels are the same. 1 minute, you're using magnets to navigate a frozen lake, and the next, you're flying around a giant tree while battling squirrels. It's like every level reinvents itself, and it keeps surprising you all the way through. The gameplay is so tight. Each player has unique abilities that are completely different but complement each other perfectly. It's not about one person carrying the team. You have to communicate and figure things out together. And yeah, it might cause a few arguments, trust me, but when you nail a tricky section, it feels amazing. The story is surprisingly emotional. It's funny and lighthearted most of the time, thanks to the ridiculous situations you get into, and the over-the-top characters. Dr. Hakim, the talking relationship book, is a lot. But underneath all the chaos, there's a real heart to the story about rebuilding trust and understanding. By the end, it's hard not to feel something. The visuals are stunning, with each level looking completely unique and bursting with creativity. From a kid's bedroom that feels like a massive playground to a magical garden that's straight up gorgeous, the game is a constant feast for the eyes, and the music ties everything together perfectly. It's playful, emotional, and always fits the vibe. It Takes Two is more than just a game, it's an experience you share. It's full of moments that make you laugh, yell, and cheer together, and that's rare. Whether you're playing with someone who games all the time or someone who barely touches a controller, this game is a blast. It's a reminder of how much fun playing together can be.
We got it!
Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is like stepping into a samurai movie, but you're the one calling the shots. It's set in 13th century Japan during the Mongol invasion, and you play as Jin Sakai, a samurai torn between following his code and doing whatever it takes to protect his home. The game is gorgeous, emotional, and packed with moments that make you feel like a total badass. The story hits hard right from the start. Jin starts as a by-the-book samurai, but the Mongols don't play fair, and he's forced to rethink everything he stands for. It's not just about slicing through enemies, though. There's plenty of that. It's about Jin's internal struggle, honor versus survival. And the supporting cast, incredible. Characters like Yuna and Sensei Ishikawa bring depth to the story, and their personal arcs make the world feel alive. Combat is pure samurai perfection. You've got intense sword duels where every move feels deliberate, and the game rewards you for precision and patience. Then there's the stealth side, where you can sneak through enemy camps like a ghost, taking them out one by one. Whether you want to face enemies head on or go full ninja, the game gives you the tools to play your way. And the standoff mechanic, absolutely satisfying. Nothing beats the thrill of cutting down enemies in one clean strike. The island of Tsushima is a character in itself. It's breathtaking with rolling fields, dense forests, and misty mountains. The game ditches traditional waypoints for a guiding wind mechanic which feels so natural and keeps you immersed in the world. Every corner of the island has something to discover, whether it's a hidden shrine, a bamboo cutting challenge, or just a stunning view that makes you stop and soak it all in. What really makes Ghost of Tsushima special is how much heart it has. It's not just about the action, it's about the quiet moments. Writing a haiku by a peaceful lake, following a fox to a hidden shrine, or just watching the leaves blow in the wind. These moments ground the game and make the experience feel deeply personal. Visually, the game is jaw-dropping. Every frame looks like it could be a painting, and the sound design, spot on. From the clash of swords to the rustling of grass, everything pulls you into this world. Ghost of Tsushima is more than a game, it's an experience. It's about honor, sacrifice, and finding your place in a world that's changing around you. Whether you're in it for the epic battles, the stunning world, or the emotional story, it's a journey worth taking. Silent Hill 2 Remake. The Silent Hill 2 Remake is finally here, and wow, it's everything fans hoped for and more. This isn't just a rehash of a classic, it's a full-on reimagining that captures the soul of the original while making it feel fresh and terrifying all over again. You're back as James Sunderland, drawn to Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his deceased wife, Mary. From the moment you step into the fog, it's clear this isn't just nostalgia, it's a haunting, modern take on one of the best psychological horror games ever made. The story still hits just as hard, diving deep into grief, guilt, and denial, but the updated visuals and voice acting crank up the emotional weight in ways the original couldn't. The town of Silent Hill has never looked better or worse, depending on how you feel about spine-chilling environments. The remake uses Unreal Engine 5, and it's stunning. The fog isn't just a blurry backdrop anymore, it's thick, suffocating, and makes you feel completely isolated. Every street, every crumbling building feels like it has a story to tell, and the lighting and textures make the whole town feel alive, in the creepiest way possible. The gameplay has been modernized, but stays true to the spirit of the original. The tank controls are gone, replaced with smoother, more responsive movement, which makes exploration less frustrating without taking away from the tension. Combat has also been reworked, giving you more control without making James feel like an action hero. He's still vulnerable and every encounter feels dangerous. The enemies, terrifying. Pyramid Head, in particular, is as menacing as ever, both in design and in how he stalks you through the game. One of the standout improvements is the sound design. Akira Yamaoka's iconic score has been beautifully reworked, and it's just as haunting as you remember. The ambient sounds, the distant creaks, the unsettling whispers keep you on edge the entire time. Pair that with the new voice acting, and the emotional depth of the story hits even harder. What's great about the Silent Hill 2 remake is how much respect it has for the original while still feeling like its own thing. It doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, it just polishes it to perfection. Whether you're revisiting Silent Hill or experiencing it for the first time, this remake delivers on every level. It's creepy, emotional, and unforgettable. If you're a fan of psychological horror, this is a must-play. It's not just a return to Silent Hill, it's a reminder of why this series is one of the best in the genre. Grab your flashlight, brace yourself, and step into the fog. Silent Hill has never felt so real. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is a game that doesn't hold your hand, it grabs you by the collar, throws you into feudal Japan, and demands you master it. From Software took their signature difficulty and added a whole new layer of precision, creating an action game that's brutal, beautiful, and incredibly rewarding. You play as Wolf, a shinobi on a mission to rescue his kidnapped lord and get revenge on the enemies who dishonored him. The story is more direct than other From Software games, but it still has that cryptic depth if you're willing to dig into the lore. It's all wrapped up in a setting that blends historical Japan with a dash of the supernatural, making every location feel both grounded and otherworldly. The combat is where Sekiro truly shines. It's fast, aggressive, and all about precision. Forget button mashing, every move counts. The game introduces a posture system where breaking your enemy's stance is more important than chipping away at their health. Parrying is key, and when you get the rhythm down, it feels incredible. Sword clashes, deflects, and finishing blows are like a dance, but one where a single mistake can cost you everything. Then there's the stuff. Unlike other From Software games, Sekiro lets you sneak around, thin out enemy groups, and even avoid fights entirely if you're clever. Add in the grappling hook and you've got a whole new level of mobility. Swinging through treetops or zipping onto rooftops makes the world feel so much more dynamic. Boss fights are unforgettable. Each one is a test of everything you've learned so far. They're tough as nails, but they're fair. When you finally take down a boss that's been kicking your ass for hours, the sense of accomplishment is off the charts. And let's not forget some of those bosses like Genichiro or the Guardian Ape are pure From Software genius, combining spectacle with challenge. What makes Sekiro so special is how much it respects you as a player. It doesn't care if you're struggling, it trusts you to adapt, to learn, and to get better. And when you do, the payoff is worth every bit of frustration. If you're up for a challenge and love games that demand skill and focus, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is an absolute must-play. It's tough, but it's fair, and once you conquer it, you'll feel unstoppable. Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds isn't just a game, it's an experience that feels almost magical. It's one of those rare games where the less you know going in, the better. At its core, it's about curiosity, exploration, and piecing together a mystery that spans an entire solar system. You play as a space explorer from a race of four-eyed aliens who are just starting to reach for the stars. Armed with a rickety little spaceship, a translator, and a lot of curiosity, you're thrown into a solar system caught in a 22-minute time loop. Every loop ends with the sun exploding in a spectacular supernova, and it's up to you to figure out why it's happening and maybe how to stop it. The solar system is a masterpiece. Each planet feels like a handcrafted puzzle, and they're all wildly different. There's Brittle Hollow with its crumbling core and black hole giants, Deep with its towering cyclones and underwater secrets and the terrifying dark bramble, where getting lost could mean the end of you. And the best part, there's no hand-holding. The game gives you tools to explore and leaves you to figure things out on your own. Every discovery feels earned, and each new piece of information pushes you closer to unraveling the bigger mystery. What makes Outer Wilds so special is how everything connects. It's not about leveling up or upgrading gear, it's about learning. Knowledge is the reward, and it's what drives you forward. You'll stumble on ancient ruins, read logs from a long extinct civilization, and slowly piece together what happened to them and what it means for your own survival. The music and atmosphere are perfect. The soundtrack is gentle and melancholic, setting the tone for a game that's equal parts wonder and sadness. The sense of scale and isolation as you drift through space is incredible. You feel both small and significant at the same time. The time loop mechanic adds a layer of urgency, but never feels punishing. It's not about racing against the clock, it's about making progress little by little as you connect the dots. And when you finally put everything together, the payoff is unforgettable. Outer Wilds is a game about curiosity, about looking up at the stars and wondering what's out there. It's thoughtful, emotional, and completely unique. If you're into exploration and love games that trust you to figure things out, this is one journey you don't want to miss. It's the kind of game that stays with you long after you've finished.
We're at war. No one wants to admit it.
Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 is where the series truly hit its stride. It's not just a game, it's a space opera that puts you at the center of an epic, emotional, and often personal story. Building on the foundation of the first game, it cranks up the action, sharpens the storytelling, and delivers one of the most memorable casts in gaming. You're back as Commander Shepard, tasked with assembling a team of misfits, soldiers, and specialists to take on the Collectors, a mysterious and terrifying enemy. The stakes are galaxy-level high, but the story keeps the focus tight on your squad and their personal struggles. Each character has their own story and personality, and the loyalty missions dedicated to exploring their backstories are some of the best moments in the game. From Garrus and his vigilante justice to Jack's deeply traumatic past, these missions make you care about your team in a way that few games manage. Combat is a massive step up from the first game. It's faster, smoother, and way more fun. The cover system actually works now, and the powers feel impactful, especially when you start combining them with your squad's ability. Whether you're biotically throwing enemies around or unloading your assault rifle, every fight feels like a tactical puzzle. And the variety of weapons and classes lets you play the way you want. The choices you make, they matter. Mass Effect 2 leans into its RPG roots, giving you tough moral decisions that shape not just the story, but how your squad sees you. And the Paragon Renegade system lets you decide what kind of shepherd you want to be: a noble hero, a ruthless leader, or something in between. By the time you hit the final mission, every choice feels like it's building to that moment. The world building is top-notch. Every planet, every conversation, every codex entry makes the galaxy feel alive. The environments are more diverse than the first game, and the missions are packed with variety. You might be infiltrating a high-tech facility one moment and investigating a derelict spaceship the next. And then there's the music. The score perfectly captures the sense of adventure, danger, and wonder that comes with exploring the galaxy. It's the kind of soundtrack that sticks with you long after the credits roll. What makes Mass Effect 2 so unforgettable is how it blends big, cinematic moments with deeply personal storytelling. It's not just about saving the galaxy, it's about the people you save it with. If you're into games where your choices matter, the action is tight, and the story pulls you in, Mass Effect 2 is an absolute must-play. This is sci-fi at its best. Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas isn't just a game, it's a world you get lost in, one filled with moral gray areas, unforgettable characters, and a level of freedom that few RPGs can match. It's not about saving the world or being the ultimate hero, it's about carving out your own story in the post-apocalyptic Mojave Desert. You start as a courier, shot in the head and left for dead, only to wake up and set out to uncover why someone wanted you dead in the first place. From there, it's entirely up to you how the story plays out. Will you side with the militaristic NCR, throw in with the brutal Caesar's Legion, team up with the mysterious Mr. House, or blaze your own path? The choices are endless, and they all feel meaningful. What makes New Vegas special is how it respects your choices. The game doesn't just pretend to give you freedom, it actually delivers. You can talk your way out of problems, go guns blazing, or sneak around like a wasteland ninja. Every decision changes how factions view you, and by the time you hit the endgame, the world reflects the kind of person you've become. The Mojave Wasteland is a character in itself. It's desolate, sure, but it's also packed with life and personality. From the bright lights of New Vegas to the dusty roads of Good Springs, every location feels unique. You'll stumble on bizarre encounters like a man dressed as a bear or a cult of rocket worshipping ghouls, and each one is weirder and more interesting than the last. The writing is sharp and full of dark humor. New Vegas isn't afraid to tackle heavy themes like power, war, and survival, but it balances it all with a sense of absurdity. One moment you're deciding the fate of a faction, and the next you're playing blackjack with a robot. It's that perfect blend of serious and ridiculous. Combat is improved from Fallout 3 with the addition of iron sights and more refined gunplay, and if you're more into role-playing than shooting, the game's dialogue options and skill checks let you solve problems in creative ways. The hardcore mode adds an extra layer of challenge, requiring you to manage hunger, thirst, and sleep. It's brutal, but satisfying if you're into survival mechanics. What really sets Fallout New Vegas apart is how personal it feels. Your choices shape the Mojave in ways that make every playthrough different. It's a game that doesn't hold your hand, doesn't force you down a specific path, and lets you make the wasteland your own. If you're into RPGs that let you define your story, New Vegas is a must-play. It's messy, it's chaotic, and it's absolutely brilliant. Whether you're here for the wild characters, the branching story, or just to wander the wasteland, this game has something for everyone. Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 15 is a road trip wrapped in a fantasy, a young prince tasked with reclaiming his throne after his kingdom falls to an invading empire. But it's not just about kings and empires, it's about Noctis and his three best friends, Prompto, Gladiolus, and Ignis. The bond between these four is the heart of the game, and their interactions feel genuine. Whether they're joking around by the campfire or backing each other up in battle, you can't help but feel like part of their group. The game starts as an open world adventure, and the world of EOS is stunning. You'll drive around in your slick convertible, the regalia, stopping to fight monsters, explore ruins, or just take in the scenery. It's a beautiful mix of modern and magical gas stations and diners sit alongside ancient ruins and massive summons like Titan and Leviathan. The game eventually shifts to a more linear, story-focused structure in the second half, which some people love and others don't. But either way, the journey is worth it. Combat is fast and fluid, leaning more toward action than traditional turn-based battles. You're warping around the battlefield, chaining together attacks, and working with your friends to pull off team moves. It's flashy, satisfying, and doesn't get old, especially when you're up against some of the game's bigger, more cinematic bosses. What really sticks with you, though, are the little moments, sharing a meal at camp, hearing Prompto hum the Final Fantasy theme, or just cruising with your friends while listening to old FF soundtracks on the Regalia's radio. It all adds a layer of humanity to the story. The game makes you care about these characters, and by the time you hit the emotional finale, it's hard not to feel something. The visuals are stunning, as you'd expect from a Final Fantasy game. From the sprawling fields of Duscae to the neon lights of Altissia, every area is packed with detail, and the soundtrack, gorgeous. Yoko Shimomura's score hits all the right notes, from the grand, sweeping themes to the quieter, emotional tracks. Final Fantasy XV isn't flawless, some story beats feel rushed, and the pacing can be uneven, but it's full of heart. It's a game about brotherhood, about growing up, and about finding light in the darkest time. If you're looking for an RPG that's a little different, one that blends epic battles with personal moments, this one's worth a shot. It's a journey you won't forget.